Alright, we have finally made it to Chapter 1 of Fortnite, revisiting some of the best weapons and items from this entire chapter. And guys, I gotta be honest with you, this is a nearly impossible task. 10 seasons with hundreds and hundreds of weapons and items. It was almost impossible to create a perfect list. But if I had to go back to Chapter 1, all 10 seasons, and pick the best loadout from this entire chapter, these would be my choices. And now looking back at it, the game was really in its infancy stage for the majority of this season, which is the reason why there were a ton of super broken, overpowered weapons. The balancing was kind of off. So this video will definitely be an interesting one, and let me know in the comment section once you're done watching this video which weapons you felt like I missed. If you went on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a like and use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop. I also want to give a quick shout out to all the channel members who have recently joined. Thank you to each and every one of you, even if you are not pictured on the screen here, and the link will be in the description below. With all that being said, let's get right into this. All right, and obviously we're going to start at the beginning of chapter 1, and then we will end all the way with season X at the end. And of course, there was like a brief preseason before like season 1 came out, and I guess seasons weren't really a thing until season 2 when we officially got a battle pass and a whole theme and all that stuff. But I will be considering like the preseason and season 1 all in one area, and I got to get the most obvious ones out of the way. It's the pump and tac shotgun from chapter 1, season 1, the preseason. You guys know what I'm saying. And I say those seasons just because that was when it was introduced, but honestly, I could say it for every single season that it has been in, not only in chapter 1, in chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, all of it. The pump shotgun is almost always the dominant shotgun in the meta. This also includes, of course, the purple and gold versions, the spaz shotguns. This is like the cover boy weapon of Fortnite. When you think of Fortnite, you think of the pump shotgun. Of course, the mechanic of double pump absolutely basically skyrocketed the popularity of the pump shotgun. If you go to like any of the popular creative maps, especially like the box fight maps, the pump shotgun is almost always like the #1 go-to shotgun for those maps. It's just a great weapon, and honestly, the tac shotgun has a pretty similar legacy. It's like, you know, if you ever played like old Black Ops Zombies back in the day, it was like Olympia or like M14 gang. It's like the same thing. It was like pump or tac shotgun. I remember back in the day, like when this game launched, and I don't know, I was young. I think I was like 14 back in the day, and me and my brother would just go back and forth every day. He was a tac shotgun guy, I was a pump shotgun guy, and we would just argue back and forth. But the tac shotgun is absolutely a legacy weapon in Fortnite history, and actually the purple and gold tac shotguns that were introduced in, I want to say season 9, but that seems a little too late. I know it was in those later seasons of chapter 1. Certainly does have an argument to be considered the best shotgun of all time. It's incredible. Of course, like with the old purple shotgun, if you remember back in the day, dude, the purple tac, that thing was a demon. I don't know, I just get so much nostalgia talking about this, but it's not just nostalgia that's the reason why they're here. They are genuinely two of the best weapons to ever grace this game. And the final weapon that I have today that was introduced basically in the preseason season 1, basically with the launch of the game, right? That is the Scar. Again, there is an argument to be made that not only for the early seasons of Fortnite, but throughout chapter 1 into chapter 2, season 2, this was potentially the best weapon that had ever been in Fortnite. Now, if you had to ask me, I was an AUG guy in chapter 2, season 1. I was taking the AUG over the Scar, but for the entirety of chapter 1, I would say the Scar was probably the best assault rifle in the game. We all know the legend of the Scar doing 98 headshot right before it got nerfed. They took down the headshot multiplier. Assault rifles in general just got a big nerf once they added fall off damage. But again, like the Scar and the pump shotgun go hand in hand as like the main weapons in Fortnite history. When you think of Fortnite weapons, the pump and Scar have to be up there, right? It was the go-to assault rifle for every single season of Fortnite. You had to have the Scar, especially in those early seasons of chapter 1. For me, another no-brainer to be on this list, it is the Scar. But that is really all I have for the early seasons of Fortnite, specifically season 1, 2, and 3. But in season 4, one of my favorite seasons of all time, towards the very end of that season, one of the most broken weapons of all time came out. That is the drum gun. And to simply put it, if you did not use this drum gun towards the end of season 4, you have no idea what I'm talking about, because the chapter 5 drum gun, terrible, right? Every other version of the drum gun besides this one was pretty terrible, I would say. Like, even when it came back for the unvaulting event, they nerfed it a ton. They nerfed the fire rate, nerfed the accuracy, basically just nerfed this thing into the ground. But this thing in season 4 was an absolute demon. Like, if you guys remember Midas's drum gun from chapter 2, season 2, it was like every single drum gun on the map was like Midas's drum gun. That is like the only way I can put it. It was like everybody had a mythic SMG in their hands. It just ripped through everybody. It was incredibly accurate. You had, I think at the time, it was 50 bullets in the drum mag. It was just ripping through builds, ripping through people, everything in its path the drum gun was destroying. Obviously, they got on it pretty quick because in Season 5, it got some significant nerfs, all relating to like fall-off damage and accuracy stuff because it was just way too accurate for an SMG. And then they unvaulted it for Season 8. The damage was reduced from 26 and 27 to 22 and 23. They reduced the fire rate from 9 to 8. They reduced the magazine size from 50 to 40. I mean, again, they basically just destroyed this thing. And you know what I'm talking about if you know this thing was an absolute beast in Season 4 and 100% deserves to be here. One of the most broken weapons that has ever been in this game. And I'll be honest with you, you can essentially just mimic everything I said about the drum gun, but for the compact SMG, or as a lot of you guys know it as the P90 from Season 5. This thing was basically on the same level of the Season 4 drum gun, if not worse. And by worse, I mean just even more broken. I just have like a vivid memory of Daquan sitting there on launch day of Season 5 holding 5 P90s in his hand, each with 50 bullets in a clip and just melting through structures, right? That was the big thing. It was just destroying builds so quickly. Of course, when you look back on Season 5, it was technically called the spray meta because at the time you did have the drum gun, you had the P90, you had the regular SMG. A lot of people weren't even holding shotguns. It was all SMGs. But again, they nerfed the living crap out of this thing. I mean, listen to this. Compact SMG accuracy bonus reduced from 35 to 15%. Reduced damage from 23 and 24 to 21 and 22. Fire rate reduced from 11 to 10. Range reduced from 3,500 to 3,000. Fall off percentage reduced from 80% to 70%. Reduced mag size from 50 to 40. Reduced damage from 21 and 22 to 20 and 21. I'm just laughing here. I mean, they could not have nerfed it anymore. I think the only way you can make the argument that the drum gun was stronger than this thing was solely because the drum gun was in uncommon and rare rarities. Of course, the P90 was only found in epic and legendary rarities, so it was still tough to get your hands on this, at least compared to the drum gun, which was pretty much everywhere. It was a green and blue rarity, right? Now, I would consider the P90 to be like a pretty middle of the road SMG. It's really inaccurate now, but back then, this thing was a whole different beast. And another weapon that I have from Season 5 on this list is actually the heavy sniper. Now, if you are like a chapter 3 or above player, you may not know that the heavy sniper was insane. You probably just know the heavy sniper for being in those blue rarities, doing like 120 damage with a super slow reload speed. But this thing was an absolute beast when it launched in chapter 1 season 5. This was my favorite weapon of all time for years. To my knowledge, this was the first like post-launch sniper that was added. Obviously, we had the bolt action sniper and the semi-auto sniper, and those were like your go-to snipers in Fortnite. I mean, they were the only ones, right? And then they added the hunting rifle, which I guess you could consider a sniper, right? But this was the beefy, heavy-hitting Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle. 357 damage to the head, just an absolutely unnecessary amount of damage, right? 157 to the body, absolutely piercing through every single build. This thing was the GOAT sniper. And then, yeah, I mean, they absolutely destroyed it. They reduced the body shot damage from 150 and 157 to 126 and 132. Decreased the headshot damage multiplier from 2.5 times to 1.5 times. I mean, we're talking about a headshot of 315 and 330 that was now doing 189 and 198. That is despicable. Lowered the damage to structures from 1050 and 1100 to 630 and 660. Guys, this is terrible. And it pains me to say that a lot of you newer players probably don't even care about using the heavy sniper for the damage to players, just the damage to vehicles, because yes, it did get a massive buff to vehicles, as in the damage to vehicles. It does like 600 something damage to vehicles, which is incredible. Man, this used to be my favorite sniper of all time, but they absolutely killed it. But still, that season 5 version was special. It lives in my heart forever. And I wanted to throw a very quick one in here for season 5. That's going to be these shockwave grenades. Simply put it, shockwave grenades are now an absolute staple of Fortnite. That's just the truth. I think shockwave grenades have been in something like 8 seasons of Fortnite, which is just insane. They are the go-to mobility item in tons of Fortnite seasons. They're perfect in literally every single way. In my opinion, this is like what the perfectly balanced Fortnite item looks like. I don't have to go on and on about shockwave grenades, right? You guys know how they work. You guys have used them. You guys have done everything with shockwave grenades, so I'm not going to go much longer about them. But I think that there is no argument against the shockwave grenades being here. They have to be here. They are one of the best mobility items we've ever seen. And obviously a very clear upgrade from the impulse grenade. And I actually don't have anything for Chapter 1, Season 6, so let's go on to Chapter 1, Season 7. Although, technically, I think the Spaz shotgun was introduced in, was it Season 6 or Season 7? One of those two seasons, but obviously we had talked about that earlier, so we already covered that. But there is an obvious pick here. I mean, besides planes for Season 7, it's the Infinity Blade. It feels like semi-cheesy to put the Infinity Blade on here because, well, I mean, it was only in the game for a week, but it was in the public playlist. Anybody could hop into a match and try and get the Infinity Blade, so it has to be on this list. It's eligible, right? I will also keep this one pretty brief because I feel like I've talked about the Infinity Blade a lot on this channel, and it's basically a lot of the same thing, right? Winter Royale, Psalm, they decided to add the Infinity Blade like a day before one of the biggest multi-million-dollar tournaments in Fortnite. Psalm picked it up, and yeah, he absolutely ran the entire tournament. I'll put the clip on the screen. You can see he's just shing through every single build, right? Little mongrel reference there for you OGs. But yeah, it was so overpowered that they didn't even decide to try and nerf it. They just took it out of the game, added it into the void, literally vaulted this thing, never to be seen again, except for some LTMs, right? But that doesn't count here. But I mean, yeah, that's all I got for the Infinity Blade. Definitely the most overpowered weapon that's ever graced this game, so gotta be on here. And now we move on to Chapter 1, Season 8, and this was kind of a tough one. There were a couple decent options here, but I gotta go with the flint knock. I feel like this weapon is just a tad bit of an outlier, right, on this list, not only because it's a pistol, but because a lot of the weapons on this list have been just straight up blatantly overpowered. Everything besides the shockwave grenade and maybe the heavy sniper were genuinely like some of the most broken and overpowered things that have ever touched this game, but the flint knock, that's not the case. Again, I would make the argument that the flint knock is another one of the most perfectly balanced weapons this game has ever seen, right? You get the ability to save yourself from fall damage, you get really good damage, you get like 180 headshot damage, right? But at the risk of sending yourself flying off your builds, or you gotta crouch, right, so that you don't go flying back, which changes, you know, your angles and how you shoot. Not to mention the fact that, you know, right, you only get one shot before you reload, and it's quite a long reload. I will say this is like a little bit of a personal pick here, right, because I absolutely love the flint knock, and I know so many of you guys do as well. It is certainly one of the more popular weapons that has ever been in this game, but I mean, think about it, right? You get a weapon that can save you from fall damage, a basically like pocket sniper if you're able to hit a headshot, and I also forgot to mention that your shot also pushes the enemy back, right, which is also another huge benefit. I don't know, it might be a hot take, but I think the flint knock deserves to be here. And for my last selection of this video, a little spoiler alert, I do not have anything for Season X. I mean, besides the mechs, I guess, but that's a vehicle, not an item. It is going to be Season 9's combat shotgun. And to my knowledge, if I remember correctly, this was one of, if not the first time that the pump shotgun had ever been vaulted. And so this thing had some big shoes to fill, right? It was essentially replacing the pump shotgun. And it absolutely filled those shoes and even more. I mean, for a little bit, right? Before it got nerfed, there was a small window of time where the combat shotgun was probably the best shotgun at the time ever in Fortnite. I just remember like all these streamers and everybody I was watching complaining about the combat shotgun. Yo, dude, this thing's gotta get nerfed. You gotta nerf this thing. It is unbelievable, the range especially. And that is exactly what they did. They nerfed the availability, right? So you had a less chance of getting it from floor loot and chest loot. They also nerfed the damage at medium distances. They also nerfed the damage at long range distances by a lot, right? The damage at medium distances reduced from 2.4 tiles to 4.8 tiles, and then the damage at long distance reduced from 4.8 tiles to 9.76 tiles. So basically just cutting it in half across the board. They reduced the headshot multiplier, this is a big one, from 1.7x to 1.5x, and then basically just a bunch of like nerdy numbers on fall off curve ranges that were reduced, and more like long range effectiveness being reduced. And it basically got to the point that like by the end of Season 9, this thing was not great. And after Chapter 1, the combat shotgun was really not great until Chapter 5, Season 3, I would argue. I would say that was probably one of the best versions of the combat shotgun we had ever seen. All through Chapter 2, 3, 4, whatever, the combat shotgun was always seen as a very, very weak, bad shotgun. But that was not the case in the beginning of Season 9. If you guys know, you know, right? The combat shotgun was untouchable. And phew, guys, that was a long list for some of Fortnite's best weapons from all of Chapter 1. Again, this list was almost impossible to make. I guarantee you, you are going to have a different list than mine. So let me know in the comment section below what your list would look like. I hope you guys enjoyed the little nostalgia trip here through Chapter 1. And if you want to do it again, well, I have the worst weapons in Chapter 1 on its way as well. So be sure to stay subscribed to check that out. If you went on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.